This is Flashpoint. It's a TV show on the Victory Network, owned and operated by Kenneth Copeland on every major TV network. Dish, Spectrum, DirecTV, all of them. They had Lauren Boebert on to talk about her absolutely insane ideas about creating a biblical citizenship test and gun rights and all kinds of other bizarre stuff. That was in the last part. If you haven't seen it, don't sweat it. You don't have to see parts 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 to understand what's happening here. If there's missing context, I'll explain it. In this part, they're going to talk about the 28th Amendment. That doesn't exist currently, but they're trying to start a movement to create it. It gets absolutely nutty. Let's watch.
All right, Rick, I'm going to read some of this and let you comment. Section 1, the inalienable right of a free people to be kept safe from gun violence and the fear thereof. I mean, of course.
Wait, is this supposed to be the 28th Amendment? Because I just read through the 28th Amendment thing, and it was all about making... Okay, so the 28th Amendment doesn't actually exist. Yeah, as far as I know. I guess people are coming up with ideas with what the 28th Amendment should be if we were to submit a new one. And the 28th Amendment that I found was about abolishing the Electoral College and making the president's vote all based on, like, popular vote. But is this, like, a different 28th Amendment? Because, you know, who's even talking about this one? I haven't seen anything about this. I looked through, didn't find a word about the one they're reading right now. Did they just fabricate this one themselves, or what? I mean, they do have a tendency to do that kind of thing, so I wouldn't put it past them, honestly.
I mean, of course everybody has that right. And why is that in here? Congress shall create a mandatory system of firearm registration. This all sounds good and fine. All those who will meet all requirements, gun successfully pass. Why should Americans be concerned about this, Rick? We heard Congresswoman Boebert, but I mean, this is laden with stuff that sounds right, which is very typical. Things sound good until you get into the beat of them. Explain why we need to be standing up to this.
Well, you know how passionate I am about the Second Amendment, so I will definitely answer that question. But first, I got to say that I'm hung up on the fact that you told Lauren she would look great in one of those shirts. You told David he would look great in one of those shirts. You left somebody out, and I think what you're trying to say is that if you want somebody modeling your shirts, it's not Rick Green, it's David Harris Jr. and Lauren. Which all people got to do is look at the screen right now.
David Harris Jr. had a wardrobe change. I didn't know we could have a wardrobe change.
Yeah. Dude, what are they talking about? I don't understand or care.
I was
waiting for him to show some biceps.
The gun show. The gun show.
America needs Jesus. Y'all need Jesus.
Yeah, we're full screen, baby.
Go, okay, show it up.
I'm all about wearing a message. So America needs Jesus,
all right,
make the rainbow godly again. Clarence Thomas saved more black lives than BLM ever did. You know what? That's what I do at davidharrisjr.stores. Give people messages to wear to spark a conversation and stand up for what they believe in.
All right, but I didn't get to your shirt before the break, and you changed on me because it was all. Explain what it said on your shirt because we never saw the bottom part of it.
It said, "Make the rainbow godly again."
Make the rainbow.
Make the rainbow godly again. Fantastic.
Godly
being used
again.
And abused by the left for trying to say that that's what love is acceptance of all different sexualities. The rainbow has nothing to do with that. The rainbow is a message that God gave us that he wouldn't destroy the earth again.
Dude, I love it how they conflate LGBT community with left automatically. Isn't that interesting how they do that? Makes you really wonder why anybody who's part of the LGBT community would ever vote for a Republican when they use language like this. Why? Why is there a group called the Log Cabin Republicans? Why do they exist? Blows my mind. You know, twice as many members of the LGBT community voted Republican in 2020 than had in 2016. Twice as many. Trump was one of the most LGBT accepting Republicans ever. Like, he doesn't care. If you're going to vote for him, then he's happy to take your vote. That's what it's all about for Trump. That is why people were more willing to vote red in 2020. Because Trump was more accepting and they felt like the Republican Party was starting to open up to, you know, the LGBT community a little bit. But lo and behold, here we have a prime example of exactly what the Republican Party thinks of the LGBT community. You don't even have to look that hard. You don't have to do any hard searching to find their real opinions on this. They'll tell you exactly how they feel if you ask them. Yeah, Trump was accepting, mostly. If you were willing to vote for him, he didn't give a shit. He'd take anybody. That's not the sentiment of the rest of the Republican Party, not even close. This is what it's really all about for Republicans.
It's a message of his promises to us, that if we stand on his promises, then we'll have eternal life, and we'll have we'll be overcomers in this life. So we need to, as believers, I think, champion more standing up for what the rainbow means, take it back from the progressive left, and that shirt, "Make the Rainbow Godly Again," is just a way for people to show their support for the origin of the rainbow.
Amen. In fact, I was telling you before the show tonight.
I feel like the origin of the rainbow is actually physics, not Jesus, but okay. All right.
This week, Mario Morrell, look at that tent meeting in Colorado Springs. Congresswoman Boebert, right there. Look at that double rainbow over the tent.
That's pretty cool. I got to admit, I like that.
The evening service. What a great time they had. All right, so make sure you get your shirt that Rick Green will look good in. All right.
Yes.
All right, now will you answer my question?
Yeah, now answer your question. Okay, they love the platitudes, don't they? I mean, even Matthew McConaughey, who oozes coolness, right? Nobody more cool on the planet. So he was what we would have called in previous generations a useful idiot for the White House, because they got him to come in and in an ultra cool way say, why can't we just keep the guns out of the hands of the bad guys? It sounds wonderful. It's a great platitude. Now tell me.
Well, actually, they didn't use Matthew McConaughey to say that. Matthew McConaughey is from Uvalde, which is the place that was suffering from the gun violence the most recently. A bunch of people died because of the current Republican gun policy. That doesn't make him a useful idiot. He's disgusted with what the Republicans have done to his hometown. Just ridiculous.
Out of the hands of the bad guys. It sounds wonderful. It's a great platitude. Now tell me how you're going to do that.
Limit the number of guns that are in the United States, that are in circulation. That's how you're going to do it. That's the only solution. There are countries around that have a lot of guns and don't have this problem. At this point, the culture is the problem. Gun culture is the issue. And we've proven that as a country, we're not responsible enough to own massive amounts of guns. Very clearly not responsible enough for this anymore. And the only solution to this is not having them around. Not having as many of them around. I mean, it didn't have to be that way, but here we are. Republicans insisted on making it a part of their manhood, and we just can't have this many guns anymore and be safe simultaneously. That's just what it is. People are either going to suffer from mass casualty events like we have been, or we're going to lower the number of guns in the country. Since we know Republicans are going to fight that every step of the way, sounds like thanks to Republicans, we're going to be stuck with mass casualty events.
Exactly. What they're ignoring is human nature, everything that Lauren was saying earlier about a godless country. That's how you end up in this situation. But violence and mass murder events have happened since the beginning of time, usually by government on the people, which is why our founders wanted this.
This is the same propagandistic framing that David Barton took earlier. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, but I played this clip earlier from Barton where he talked about how people should be able to own nuclear weapons.
The greatest people killer of all has been government. Nothing has killed more people than government has
Same exact propagandistic framing.
Killed. And so when you look at that, the Founding Fathers believed that the people should be able to have enough arms in place to be able to remind their government, you don't want to mess with us. You don't want to come after us. Well, if all we've got is pea shooters and they've got 50 caliber machine guns, that's not the point of the First Amendment, because they point out consistently, Patrick Henry and George Mason and others, that the greatest threat to your loss of guns will come from government, not from criminals or others. And so they were very...
Yeah, obviously criminals aren't going to try to go on a mass disarming spree or a buyback program or something. Like, that's obvious. Why did he even need to say that?
Adam.
He didn't need to say that. It was all part of a propaganda framing method. That's it.
But you'd be able to have that, which is why we see in Boston, they didn't care if you have a cannon. You can have a cannon, but please don't shoot it in town or within a mile of town. It's just so loud. I mean, it wasn't the fact of having a cannon. It was just it's a little loud just to be shooting off just for fun.
Okay, it was a law, not a request, first of all. It wasn't a like, oh, please don't do this. And second, cannon was the most powerful thing that they had in that day. Nuclear weapons are very, very different. Very different from cannons. Not even in the same fucking category.
So in the same way, I don't want to see my neighbor stockpile nuclear bombs. Yeah, I don't want to see it, but I don't care if he has one because he should have the same rights. But you're saying, well, I don't think private citizens should have nuclear weapons. But if you've been trained with responsibility and morality and the concept of when and where you use them, the founding fathers are trained.
Dude, this guy is absolutely delusional. So the point is that David Barton has the exact same ideas and is the same exact framing method, the same propagandistic framing that Rick Green here has given us.
Second Amendment. And if they don't use a gun, they'll use a knife, they'll use a Chevy Suburban, whatever the vehicle might be, whether that mean a vehicle you drive or a vehicle that you hold and shoot. These people have no idea what they're talking about. You look at Moore's Amendment. You look at what Lauren fought in Colorado. Magazine capacity? Are you kidding me? When has a mass murderer showed up at a gun-free zone to shoot up the place and said, oh, there's a sign that says I can only have 8 rounds in my gun. I better go unload the rest and then come back and kill everybody.
Yeah, that's the idea. Are you serious? The sad part is that people actually buy this. They're hearing this and thinking, yeah, you're right. People aren't going to obey magazine laws. No, but the gun manufacturers are going to have to obey the magazine laws and won't be able to produce magazines past, like, I don't know, how many? 8 bullets or something? Magazines that hold more than 8 bullets. They won't be able to. They will be incapable of purchasing magazines bigger than that. And, yeah, I guess people could technically make some, but there's a higher barrier to entry. It's extremely unlikely that people are going to do that. If they're going to go nuts like some of these people do, they're going to do it in the quickest, most convenient way possible. And passing some of these laws, understanding that fact, will lower the death count. Objectively, that's what's going to happen. If we pass some of these laws, it will, without a shadow of a doubt, lower the death count in these events. But, none of this matters. This is all about propaganda. How can he convince other people to spread as many guns as possible through the U.S.? Disgusting, dude.
The only people these things hurt are people like you and me, law-abiding citizens that could stop a threat if the government wasn't preventing us from living out the Second Amendment.
To living out the Second Amendment. The fact that he even views it that way, living out the Second Amendment, is so disturbing. Not living for Jesus, but living for the Second Amendment. That's so bizarre. This is such a bizarre way to frame it. It's weird. It's weird stuff, dude, honestly. This is so depraved. So depraved to hear people frame things this way.
Clarence Thomas, thank you, Lord, for Clarence Thomas. What Clarence Thomas said in the Bruin case just 2 weeks ago was that you have an absolute right to keep and bear arms, have it on you when you're in public, and that these magazine capacity limits are unconstitutional. That's why they're now striking down California's, New York.
Yeah, interestingly enough, that case that he's talking about, that was actually about, I believe it was about a New York City case where New York City was trying to keep guns out of the city because we don't want guns here. I live there, by the way. I live in New York City. We don't want guns in New York City. We're happy without it. It's fantastic to live in an area that hasn't had a school shooting in ever, maybe? In New York City? Maybe in 20 years or something like that? I love it to death. There are so few guns in New York City that we don't really have to worry about this kind of thing. And it's just the best. So somebody basically sued New York City not too long ago to try to gain the right to open carry or something like that. I don't even remember the case now, but it was something like that. And the Supreme Court agreed that he should be allowed to buy a gun and carry it around with less regulation than there should be. So, looks like we lost one for New York City once again.
They're sending all of these cases back. So the good news is we finally have a United States Supreme Court that will stand up for our right not only to keep, but to bear arms, and that's what it takes to stop these mass murder events. Last thing, the lady in West Virginia, the day after.
Before he continues, yeah, people are allowed to purchase guns and own them in New York City. They always were. That's not what the case was about. The case is about having as little regulation as possible surrounding it and allowing people to carry guns with, to their heart's content, like with almost no oversight. Guns are not the only weapon that are heavily regulated in New York City either. You can't have a knife that has a blade longer than 4 inches, that was a surprise to me because coming from West Virginia, dude, when I moved here originally, I had a gigantic knife. It was like, I don't know, maybe a 12-inch knife. It's huge. It's almost a fucking sword for camping and stuff, and it has a little pouch in the front of its protector that has like a piece of flint or whatever that you can scratch at it to light a fire and stuff. That's what it was for. It's for camping. Yeah, that's illegal here. If New York City had known that I had that, I would have gotten in a lot of trouble for that. A lot of trouble. And not even carrying it around, just owning it, period. Like, it could have been a problem. No, I think I'm allowed to own it, but I can't move it from place to place. You can't bring it into New York City in the first place. You can't move it to another apartment. You can't take it with you on a subway train. You can't take it in your car. You're allowed to own it, but you can't take it anywhere, so... Anyway, they're very strict with weapon regulation, and I'm good with that, honestly. I'm happy with that. You know why? My kid doesn't have to go to school worrying if there's going to be a school shooter that day. So, more than happy to have heavy weapons regulation. More than happy. I love it. Supreme Court doesn't love it, though. They want to force me to deal with these fears that some fucking nutcase is going to walk into my kid's school one of these days with an AK-47 because they're having a bad day.
After Uvalde, after these police officers played it safe in the hallway for an hour and 14 minutes, the very next day in West Virginia, a lady with her firearm ends the threat in seconds when a guy was trying to kill 40 people at a party. She stops him, and the headline was, "Only the bad guy died, none of the good people." That's the way it should be, and that only happens when people can live out their Second Amendment right.
That doesn't actually happen almost ever. I don't know what he's talking about. I haven't heard anything about that. It could very well be just completely fabricated by him. That's very possible, but I don't know. What I do know is that is extremely uncommon, and we had how many? 12 good guys with guns in the form of police at Uvalde, and those 12 good guys with guns didn't do shit when the time came. Good guy with gun versus bad guy with gun is propagandistic framing from the far right to try to get people to spread as many guns as humanly possible through the population. Does not actually work that way. I'd love it if it did. It doesn't.
Oh, so
what we do know is the more guns spread through society, the more shootings and attacks we have to deal with.
True, so true. All right. So listen.
There's a reference to, what's his name? Matthew McConaughey, yeah. Reference to Matthew McConaughey there.
I know, it was bad.
Okay, it wasn't that funny.
It was a bad... I'm sure the people in Australia, let's rewind a couple of years, a year and a half ago, as they were rounding people up for COVID camps.
I'm sorry? No, they weren't. In Australia? What are you talking about?
The reason they can do that? Because they didn't have the right to bear arms. So, excellent. All right.
No. Complete delusion. Delusion piled on top of nonsense, piled on top of misinformation. It is all nonsense, all the way down.
I'm going to give David Harris Jr. a chance to comment on that, and then we'll move along. Go ahead, David.
Well, I absolutely concur. You know, it's only the good people that wind up at the whim of criminals or the government. You know, I'm 100% always for the Second Amendment, but we have to understand, even though the Second Amendment is great for single women or mothers or women that feel, you know, like they need to have protection if they're walking alone at night, after they got off of work, that's a must. It's a must for families to be able to protect themselves, especially with the lawlessness and the criminals that are going crazy right now under progressive DAs that are letting them off the hook with a slap on the wrist for some of the most insane things possible, even attempted murder or murders.
Dude, this is complete delusion. What DAs are you talking about? Where is it that people are allowing criminals off the hook to do whatever they want? Where is this lawlessness you're talking about? Tell me where exactly. It's complete nonsense. It's not happening. It's propaganda all the way down with these people.
The Second Amendment is for us to be able to protect ourselves. But the ultimate reason, Gene, the ultimate reason that the founding fathers gave us the Second Amendment is so that we don't find ourselves beholden to a government with guns. We need to be able to stand up against tyranny, and especially at a time like right now, like we've never seen. I've never seen the government, our own government, so pedal to the metal on progressive issues, leading us towards communism, wanting us to be subjects than right now.
In what way is the government pushing communism? Tell me where. What policies are being pushed, and in what municipalities? Where is communism taking root? Can this guy even define communism? I deeply doubt it, to be perfectly honest. I deeply doubt he can even define it.
Now, more than ever, we need to understand the Second Amendment was put in place by the brilliance and the wisdom of the founding fathers, understanding that in order for us to not be subjects, we need to be armed. That's 100% why we need the Second Amendment. So God bless Lauren and every other representative or senator that's standing up for our Second Amendment rights.
Yes, and speaking of the Supreme Court, we all know, now listen, there are people that happened to walk in on January 6th that are sitting in a prison cell.
That happened to walk in? I assume what he means is they happened to walk into the Capitol building, which, by the way, is a restricted area. You're not allowed to be in there without permission. There are, like, metal detectors and stuff in the Capitol building that prevent you from just walking in. These people just walked in without permission. Yeah. Just walking in was a crime. They were trespassing. I'm totally glad that they got charged with a crime for committing a crime on the 6th.
Yet, look at what they're doing outside these the Supreme Court justices' homes. I want to play this clip. The Maryland police are finally enforcing some of these laws. Watch.
We have news just coming into the Situation Room regarding protests outside the homes of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Chief Justice John Roberts. CNN law enforcement correspondent Whitney Wild is in Chevy Chase, Maryland for us. That's just outside of Washington, D.C. Whitney, after weeks of allowing protesters to demonstrate, tonight authorities will begin enforcing disturbing the peace laws. Explain what that means.
Well, Wolf, what it means is that protesters can come out here and protest quietly, but they cannot bring out bullhorns. They can't bring out drums. They can't come out screaming in the street. And one of the reasons for that, Wolf, again, is that the Montgomery County Police is going to be enforcing this disorderly conduct statute. But Montgomery County Police tell me that after several weeks of protests here, these noisy protests, they have received a flood of complaints from neighbors. And so now they are saying to protesters, you can come out here and protest peacefully and you can protest quietly, but if you don't abide by this disorderly conduct statute, you may face arrest, Wolf.
Interesting. I'm not super sure how I feel about that. I guess, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm going to have to think about it. So they're allowed to protest, but they have to do it quietly? I don't know, man. I'm not sure. I would have to think about this a little bit longer to decide if I'm in favor of this or not.
Very interesting. Whitney Wild reporting for us. Thank you very much.
All right, let me go to you, Representative Boebert. When you see that, is that a win? Should we take that as a win?
I think it's pretty cheap. So because neighbors are complaining about noise, that's why we should be concerned about what's going on. Are you kidding me? Well, I had 27 Democrats vote against extra security for our Supreme Court justices. This has gone way too far. The White House press secretary.
Okay, first of all, I haven't heard about that, about extra security for them or whatever else. They have plenty of security. The Supreme Court, they have a ton of security. Oh my God. Wasn't the National Guard deployed to the Supreme Court building or some crazy thing like that? I don't want anything to happen to the Supreme Court justices. I think that would be deeply wrong. And trying to solve the problem of the Supreme Court justices being corrupt by taking them out so Biden has an opportunity to elect a new one or to nominate a new one or whatever, that's wrong. That is not how democracy works. Should absolutely not even be on people's minds. So just get that out of the way. That being said, I think they have enough security, first of all. And second, this is just a culture war distraction to distract you from the fact that they just took away our human rights. I'm sorry, Brett Kavanaugh, that you have people yelling outside your house. That's the only way we have to keep you accountable. You don't like that? Then don't do things that are deeply, deeply unpopular with everybody in the country, nearly. Like 70% or something like that of the country disagrees with their decision to do what they did, to remove Roe v. Wade. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Terry is welcoming it, inviting it, saying that this is okay, that they should be allowed to do this. These are their private homes. Get them the heck away from there.
Yeah, they're private homes, but they're public figures, public people who just did a very publicly bad thing to hurt a lot of people in the country. So I have very little sympathy, honestly, very little. Again, it's just a distraction. They want people talking about, oh, is it wrong for people to be at their house? I don't know. I can't decide. Oh, my God, we should all argue over this instead of arguing over the fact that they just took our rights away. I don't give a shit what they or how they feel about people being at their house. What I give a shit about is the fact that they just did something that guarantees that people are going to die. Lots. And overturned decades of precedent. That's what I care about. I don't care that people are outside their home protesting, honestly. I don't want them dead. I don't want anybody threatening them. If somebody shows up at their house with a knife, like happened recently to Kavanaugh, the police should hold them accountable. You don't get to distract us from what you just did, though.
Actually, listen to this. Today, AOC got upset because someone was catcalling at her and making comments about her body. And today there was a fence around and no one could come up to the steps of the Capitol where members go in and out of each and every day while we are voting. We always have people right there at the steps waiting, wanting to see members.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why this is so bad. Like, there's a huge delay between the video and the actual audio. It looks like it's original to the clip. It isn't my copy of it here. It's just poorly recorded or something. So we'll just have to put up with it.
Steps of the Capitol where members go in and out of each and every day while we are voting. We always.
Sorry. God, we're never going to get through this portion here. Step back a little bit. Somebody asked, where do I buy an emulator like that? You don't. You make one. It took me weeks. I would say weeks. It took me weeks to do this. It was very, very complex. And I did my own custom coding and my own soldering. I soldered like wires together to make an on-off button and an LED. I got LEDs and like resistors and soldered the resistor to the LED and connected it through pin connectors and everything. It was very, very complex to do this. But yeah, I absolutely love this thing to death. Love it to death. I actually made, okay, it cost me about $80, I think, total to make. from scratch. Do I sell Raspberry Pi cases? I do not. Anyway, it cost me about $80 to make originally. So I bought the parts for, I think, 8 of them maybe, and made 8 of these things and gave them out to family members for Christmas one year, years ago. It was really cool. Thought about selling them. That would be really awesome too, but I can't. I can't sell them. Certainly not with games on them or whatever, but yeah. I love this thing to death. I've had this for years. Anyway, okay, let's keep listening.
About her body. And today there was a fence around and no one could come up to the steps of the Capitol where members go in and out of each and every day while we are voting. We always have people right there at the steps waiting, wanting to see members, have pictures with members, just passing by. And because someone made a video yesterday, AOC went crying and they shut it down.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe it's been like 5 years and you guys are watching this 5 years in the future. So I'll just tell you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was seriously harassed on the steps of the Capitol. The guy should have been arrested, but he wasn't for one reason or another. And honestly, I wouldn't have blamed her for hitting the guy. I mean, I don't advocate for that. I don't think that that's right. I'm glad that she chose not to hit him. That would have not been good, but she would have been completely justified in doing so if she had chosen, and I don't think anybody would have blamed her for that. He's a complete scumbag, the guy was, that did this, and it made her and everybody around feel very unsafe. He's a right-wing extremist who's, talking about all kinds of just disturbing stuff, dude. But anyway, I can't believe that Lauren Boebert is even defending this. If somebody said that to her, I don't even know how she would have reacted to that. I love my Raspberry Pi. Built a couple for family members as well. They're pretty cool, definitely. I love pies. Sadly, right now, Raspberry Pis are really, really hard to find, expensive because of the chip shortage. This was when I did this, like 8 of them before. This is long before the chip shortage took place. Yeah, but let's keep listening. Actually, I guess I could play that clip from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Okay, let me start this over. This is 1 minute and 35 seconds. I don't know what channel this is or who it is or why they're talking, but just watch. This is what happened.
Congresswoman AOC is calling out the creepy guy who hassled her on the steps of the Capitol.
You look very beautiful in that dress. You look very sexy. Look at that booty on AOC. That's my favorite big booty Latina.
The firebrand liberal New York Democrat was heading to work with an aide and her fiance and dog.
Okay, they're cutting out large swaths of it. I don't know, Inside Edition? They called AOC a firebrand liberal?
When she was heckled, she turned to confront the guy, then flashed him a sarcastic peace sign.
Why don't you do a little selfie? I love it. My favorite, AOC. Nice to meet you, AOC. Look how sexy she looks in that dress.
AOC immediately went on social media and called it a deeply disgusting incident.
See this guy right there? Right there. When I was walking up, he said, hey, look at that big ass, look at that big juicy booty, this Latina, like whatever, all the bunch of racist, sexist stuff.
She pointed out that it happened in front of a Capitol police officer who she says did nothing to help her.
It's really hard and it's really sad.
AOC tweeted that she wanted to deck the guy but needed to catch a vote more than a case. So, who is he? His name is Alex Stein, and he's a far-right activist known for making provocative videos. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says she was disheartened by the
Yeah, it was just a big ugly thing, and I can't believe Boebert is even defending such a thing. It's disgusting, honestly.
Just at that, but we have Supreme Court justices. We've had an assassination attempt. We've had them protest.
Assassination attempt? No. I'm sorry. Okay, I know what she's talking about. Some guy showed up to Kavanaugh's house wielding a knife and had talked about, like, he was obviously mentally unwell. It wasn't an assassination attempt, I don't think. I guess it would depend on how you would define it, but okay. I guess whatever. I mean, you guys have the facts now, so.
At their house for weeks now, and because neighbors are suddenly complaining about noise, we're going to just enforce some disturbing the peace citations, some laws there. This is certainly not far enough, but Democrats have been voting against extra security for them. They are for defunding the police. They are for the crime in our.
Nobody is for defunding the police. Again, this is another example of them using a nebulous they word, trying to convince people that the liberals are all in favor. Who's in favor of defunding the police? Tell me who it is specifically. Give me names. Not one single person in a position of power is in favor of that. And I honestly don't think I know anybody who's in favor of defunding the police. I would like to see the police budget reworked. I would like to, in fact, I wouldn't be opposed to giving the police more funding. Give them more to put it into training them better, to make sure that the police are not afraid, standing there scared shitless, holding a gun at somebody that they think is going to kill them, because that's what leads to tragedies. So fund them better than we're funding them right now. Who's saying defund the police? Seriously, who's saying it? Anybody?
Cities. They never had a summer of love. It was a summer of riots and looting that the Democrats encouraged and fundraised off of. And
more propaganda. Nobody was in favor of looting or riots. I don't know if you guys have seen this before. This is a comic that came out around the time that Martin Luther King Jr. was holding protests and events and stuff. It's a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. standing there saying, "I plan to lead another nonviolent march tomorrow," speaking to a reporter, looking around with the city in tatters, cars destroyed, buildings burning, trash all over the place. Martin Luther King was the very definition of peaceful protester, non-violent protester. This is how the media slandered him and his movement. This is how it works. This is how they've always done it. They will take a movement that they know they're losing culturally, and they'll say it's violent. They're looters. They're rioters. They hate everything. They're destroying everything. They're making a mess out of everything, blah, blah, blah. That's always the tactic they take. When they do, understand that it's propaganda, beginning to end. It's all propaganda. Do not believe them when they say that Democrats are part of a violent movement. BLM is violent. They're rioting and looting and all that stuff. Do not believe it unless you have independent verification of what's happening. After I saw that comic, I realized how completely full of shit these people really are.
Democrats encouraged and fundraised off of, and we have now a vice president who bailed these thugs out of jail while they were doing this, burning down our cities, and we had law enforcement officers lose their lives, people lose their...
Who? Which law enforcement officers lost their lives in the great riots, or whatever you want to call them? Give us names.
Lose their lives, people lose their businesses. It is absolutely disgusting what the left is allowed to get away with. And you're right, we still have political prisoners in jail for simply stepping foot inside the Capitol building on January 6th.
Dude, the fact that they're now defending the January 6th events is absolutely grotesque to me, truthfully. I can't believe they're even getting away with defending the events of January 6th.
And speaking of January 6th, look at this New York Times. This one really, I don't know. Ray Epps has suffered enormously.
Okay, so, God, if you guys don't know who Ray Epps is, he was somebody that was at the riot, basically, the January 6th attack, the insurrection. And the far right, has been claiming that he was like an FBI plant. All complete nonsense. It's all right-wing propaganda.
Past 10 months as a right-wing media figures and Republican politician have basically described him as a covert government agent who helped instigate the attack on the Capitol last year. I'm sorry, but he's not in jail. He's hiding. Just in case you don't remember.
Yeah, I would be in hiding too if I were that guy. The right has completely turned on him, started threatening his life. I mean, he's been on like hit lists and stuff. Absolutely would hide if I were him. This is all propaganda. All of it. In fact, maybe I can find an article. Hang on. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Let's just take a quick gander at a couple of fact checks about Ray Epps before they start talking about the guy. So one fact check we've got is from the New York Times. Title of it is A Trump Backer's Downfall as the Target of a January 6th Conspiracy Theory. And the other one's from Reuters. Title is Fact Check. Ray Epps' wife held a position at Dominion Enterprises, not Dominion Voting Systems. All right, here's the one about him being the target of right-wing conspiracies. In the Rocky Mountains and up a winding country road in a trailer park half a mile from a cattle ranch lives a man whose life has been ruined by a January 6th conspiracy theory. Ray Epps has suffered enormously in the past 10 months as right-wing media figures and Republican politicians have baselessly described him as a covert government agent who helped to instigate the attack on the Capitol last year. Strangers have assailed him as a coward and a traitor and have menacingly cautioned him to sleep with one eye open. He was forced to sell his business and his home in Arizona. Fearing for his safety and uncertain of his future, he and his wife moved into a mobile home in the foothills of the Rockies, with all of their belongings crammed into shipping containers in a high desert meadow a mile or two away. And for what? Lies? Mr. Epps asked the other day, with a look of pained exhaustion. All of this has just been hell. Almost from the moment that a violent mob stormed the Capitol on January 6th, allies of former President Trump have sought to shift the blame for the attack away from the people who were in the pro-Trump crowd that day to any number of scapegoats. First, they pointed at Antifa, the leftist activists who have a history of clashing with Trump's backers, who did not show up when the Capitol was breached. They tried to fault the FBI, which, according to those who spread the baseless tale, planned the attack to provoke a crackdown on conservatives. Mr. Epps, 61, was not just a bystander on January 6th. He traveled to Washington to back Mr. Trump, was taped urging people to go into the Capitol, and was there himself on the day of the assault. But through a series of events that twisted his role, he became the face of this conspiracy theory about the FBI as it spread from the fringes to the mainstream. Obscure right-wing media outlets like Revolver News use selectively edited videos and unfounded leaps of logic to paint him as a secret federal asset in charge of a breach team responsible for setting off the riot at the Capitol. The stories about Epps were quickly seized on by Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who gave them a wider audience. They were also echoed by Republican members of Congress like Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky and Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. Eventually, Trump joined the fray, mentioning Epps at one of his political rallies and lending fuel to a viral Twitter hashtag, Who is Ray Epps? He knew. Trump knew exactly what happened that day. Absolutely disgusting that he would do such a thing. Make this worse for this guy. After months of watching from the shadows as public figures he once respected, Mr. Trump among them, tarred his name and destroyed his reputation, Mr. Epps decided that he wanted to answer that question for himself. In a day-long interview, sitting in his air-conditioned recreational vehicle with his wife, Robin, and their two Shih Tzus beside them. I've never seen that word written, I don't think. Mr. Epps described himself as a father, a former Marine, a staunch but disillusioned conservative whose leaders had betrayed him. He granted the interview on the condition that the location of his new home not be disclosed. So basically, Ray Epps was just some guy there, and he became the target of conspiracy theories claiming that he was the one that caused all of this to happen and that he was whatever else, you know. That's the bottom line. And they came up with all kinds of ideas to back up their conspiracy theory, like the idea that his wife worked at Dominion Voting Systems. She did not. She did not. But facts don't matter to these people, right? Not about facts. It's about how you can spin a story to make it more crazy and extreme and unbelievable. Anyway, let's listen to what they have to say about this guy, Ray Epps, who was at the Capitol and breached the Capitol, went in, and had the blame completely pinned on him.
Last year. I'm sorry, but he's not in jail. He's hiding. Just in case you don't remember, watch this.
In fact, tomorrow, I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested.
You guys remember what I read just a second ago about deceptively edited clips, making it look like he's whatever else? I don't have the original to this clip. In fact, I don't even know what it's about to say. It may be normal. But bear in mind, they love editing clips. I'll show you an example of what they do in a minute.
We need to go, I'll say it. All right. We need to go in to the Capitol. Let's go! I'm going to put it out there. I'm probably going to go to jail for it, okay? Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. Peacefully. Fed. Peacefully. Okay, folks, spread the word. As soon as the president's done speaking, we go to the Capitol. The Capitol's this direction.
Yeah, why is this surprising? Why are they showing this? Of course, like, Trump had just said they were all going to the Capitol. Why is this deceptive or questionable? It's bizarre. Let me show you an example of a deceptively edited video that they've been using. I showed this in a previous part. This is another good example of a deceptively edited clip that they love to show in right-wing circles to make people believe that Biden has dementia or whatever else. Let me give you the context behind this clip real quick. Biden goes to meet the Pope, spent an hour and a half talking to the guy, right? And they get up there for a photo op, Biden and the Pope, and Biden decides to tell a story about a baseball player, a black baseball player that was segregated from the rest of the team or whatever else, and eventually managed to break through that segregation and that mistreatment. It was like an inspirational story Biden was trying to communicate, and, you know, it worked. Also, another thing you need to know about this story, the Pope doesn't speak English very well, so he has a translator there to translate for him. Watch what happens when Biden walks up to the Pope and starts to tell this story. This is edited by the right-wing media, by the way.
Thank you for that. He was a famous African-American baseball player.
So he starts to tell this story about this baseball player in America, right?
I know.
The translator realizes he's about to tell a story, so she walks up so she can translate for him.
Afroamericano.
And she starts translating. Then they cut it off there. Now let's look at it through the right-wing lens. As far as anybody in right-wing social media knows, all they're looking at is a clip of Biden standing in front of the Pope. And look at the subtitles here.
Thank you for that.
You're a famous
African-American
baseball player. That's not what he said. He said there's a famous African-American baseball player. But this is what right-wing media does. It twists things around. It warps it. They've even gone as far as to change subtitles to say something than what's actually being communicated, or even just dub over it with something new. Seriously, they do this. This is common.
Famous African-American baseball player in America. I know.
And right here, the subtitles say, he just called you an African-American? No. She was translating exactly what Biden was saying. That is not what she said. This is the deceptive editing that right-wing media does. That is why I do not trust a single clip, not one, from Flashpoint. Not even one. I have learned that Flashpoint has a tendency to completely make shit up. Completely make it up. Not a grain of truth in it. I happened to hear that Ray Epps was standing there and was called a Fed at some point. I don't know if that's true. I heard that it was. I don't know if that's the actual clip or if they doctored it or edited it or what. I don't know. All I know is Flashpoint is completely full of shit and has been since day one. So be cautious as you watch what they play here for us about Ray Epps. See the little chyron at the bottom says viral Epps video raises questions. No, it didn't. You are trying to raise questions. The video that we're watching wasn't surprising or suspicious or any of that stuff. We knew that there were people at the Capitol trying to break in that day. That was expected. We knew that. This is how Flashpoint and other news, honestly, other news media companies do this too. This is how they make you suspicious and make you believe something when there's no basis to believe it.
All right, so...
Wow, this is really behind. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why there's such a serious delay on this video, but hopefully we can make it through anyways. It's just really weird.
We remember that. Let me show you this tweet, then I'm going to go to you, David Harris Jr., on this. Michael Knoll says, so everyone who showed up to the Capitol on January 6th is a terrorist and a traitor, except for the guy who told everyone to storm the Capitol. That guy, for some reason, is really great, and we should all stop calling him a Fed. Do I have that right?
No. You should recognize that these people are setting out to propagandize and pin the entire thing on Ray Epps. That's a more accurate representation of the situation. But Michael Knowles is a propagandist for the far right, so it doesn't surprise me to see him saying things like this at all.
I mean, this is craziness, David Harris.
Yeah, well, I've seen those videos. I was there at on January 6th. I was front row when President Trump spoke. The people were peaceful. The people that were there to champion the president and those that were speaking. And we were there concerned about the state of the election. There wasn't a consensus that I heard from anybody close to me that we needed to go storm the Capitol. And the fact that I was there, I literally went to my hotel room. Instead of going to the Capitol, I was supposed to speak on the Capitol steps. We went to the hotel room and turned on the TV just to kind of warm up for a little bit. And as soon as we saw them talking about an insurrection, God bless my wife, she said, no, babe, we're not going anywhere. You are staying right here. So we didn't go down there. But a friend of mine that was...
Wow, that's actually really smart. Honestly, I wouldn't have admitted to even being there at the time, though. The January 6th committee, the January 6th hearings have unequivocally proven that there was an insurrection attempt on that day, motivated by Donald Trump and largely being controlled by him. That is not in question anymore. And in 10, 15, 20 years, the propaganda is going to fall away, and history will see it exactly for what it is.
With us at the hotel and then went on to the Capitol, was on the Capitol steps, Brandon Strzok. He was arrested. The Fed showed up at his door 3 weeks later in the middle of the morning, took him to jail. His case was, I think, 14 or 15 months that he was under gag order. His life was, he shared some very, very dark days that he had during that time. So
maybe the dude shouldn't have gone to the Capitol and committed an insurrection. Just putting that out there.
Thankful that we did not go to the Capitol, but the fact that we see a man right there that is literally inciting the insurrection. If anybody was inciting an insurrection of going into the Capitol, and that last video clip where he's talking to those young men that are in front of the fence, giving them orders is what it looked like to me, and then they broke through the barrier.
Actually, he was a useful idiot. Donald Trump was inciting the insurrection. The guy at the very top of the whole operation was Trump. And as I said, the January 6th committee has unequivocally proven that to be the fact. So
he's somebody that absolutely should be in jail. And where is he? Nowhere to be found. Was he drug in by the feds? Was he arrested? No. He's hiding. He's in hiding.
He was interviewed, and yeah, he is in hiding because these people are extremists and have expressed an interest in finding him and doing terrible things to him. So yeah, absolutely, I'd be in hiding too, without a doubt.
I think he's in hiding because he's allowed to stay in hiding. The feds know exactly where he's at. The fact that he is out roaming around doing what he wants to do, and we have Americans.
Dude, he's not out roaming around doing what he wants to do. Did you miss the part where he's in hiding and we have Americans in jail instead? Yeah, those Americans are more culpable than Ray Epps was.
Roaming around doing what he wants to do, and we have Americans, mothers, fathers, grandparents that are still in jail as political prisoners.
They're not political prisoners. Calling them political prisoners implies that they are from a different country that like prisoners of war. Marjorie Taylor Greene famously called the January 6th people prisoners of war. If that's really how you view it, then you believe that the U.S. has split into and the Republicans are from a different country, effectively, like the Confederate States or something like that. If you really believe that, if you really view it that way, charge them with treason. They were acting to destroy the government. They are foreign actors from a foreign government trying to destroy the U.S. government. Charge them with treason if you believe that. Seriously.
Something that we've never seen before in this country, and it's something that should infuriate every single American. It's so sad, it's heartbreaking, yet this is Joe Biden's America.
Yeah, and it is not for long. But listen, I think this is
not for long, he says. It's not Joe Biden's America for long.
I think this is infuriating, just like you said, David. This is infuriating to Americans sitting home and go, wait a minute. It's obvious this guy had something to do with it.
No, he didn't. Donald Trump inspired an insurrection against the U.S. government. It really isn't much deeper than that. We knew it when it was happening. I remember I was sitting there watching it happen on my computer live when it all went down. This guy is having trouble accepting the facts of the situation. We all saw it happen. He's trying to gaslight us. I mean, they all are. They're trying to gaslight us and confuse us and make us think it was something other than what it actually was. They conveniently forgot the police officers who killed by those who step on the Capitol, who got killed by those who stepped into the Capitol. Yeah, they did conveniently forget about the police officers who died that day, huh? They're just concerned about those poor, innocent Trump supporters who didn't do anything to anybody. Ridiculous, man.
And why is he able to go free? It's only one real reason, and everybody knows he's involved. Rick, give me your thoughts on that.
These people live in a delusional world. They really do. They live in a delusional world.
Yeah, man, it's a two-tier justice system. It's wrong. We should all want a blind justice system, an equal justice system. That is not what is happening. One of the best take-home lessons, though, from tonight is if you're a type AAA personality like David Harris Jr.
Type AAA personality? Okay, who the hell is personality? What a name, personality. Oh my God, I would be so depressed if my parents named me personality. And what is type AAA? I've never heard that before in my life.
Rick Green, listen to your wife. Did you notice he listened to his wife? Way to go, David. But listen, I want to comment on one last thing about what Lauren was saying. Here's the reason that they are so angry about the Supreme Court. When you read these decisions, Thomas and Alito are dismantling the high places for the left. They are destroying these made-up legal theories that the left used from the Supreme Court to create what we call the Courtstitution that has ruled America now for 50 years with left-wing philosophy not adopted by our lawmakers and the people that should be making the law. And Thomas and Alito are destroying that. They're not just overturning Roe v. Wade and upholding the Second Amendment and protecting religious liberty. They're also going at the throat of the made-up legal theories that are not in the Constitution. That means more good decisions to come in the coming years. So be hopeful. I love what God's doing right now.
Dude, what is he even talking about right now? I don't understand.
Through those two men, Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito. It's phenomenal. Wouldn't be happening without Donald Trump appointing the other three that are voting with them. But those two guys, I'm telling you, it's absolutely incredible what's happening when you read these opinions.
Absolutely. All right.
It's deeply disturbing to read the opinions of the Supreme Court justices. The things that they say in those are so completely ass backwards. We're not talking 1950s ideas. We're talking 1920s, 30s, and 40s ideas, and in some cases even 1800s ideas. Like, I really don't know what's going through these people's heads at this point at all.
I just want to chime in, Gene. That's exactly right, Rick. Because of President Trump's leadership in installing those justices, we are seeing these victories. Right. This is the harvest from votes, from prayers, from persistence.
Actually, it wasn't even Donald Trump who got the Supreme Court justices installed. Honestly, it was Mitch McConnell the whole way. McConnell is 100% to thank for every part of the Supreme Court justices being elected. Donald Trump, he didn't even pick them. The Federalist Society probably came in and said, here's the list of names that you can pick from for the next Supreme Court justices. Trump sat down with each of them and probably said, all right, are you going to be loyal to me at any cost? Yes? Okay, you got the job. Donald Trump's only role in this whole thing was more than likely just making sure that they would be loyal to him and him alone.
And all the glory goes to God, and President Trump certainly gets some of the credit. And I
Wait, does the glory go to God or Trump?
do want to just invite America to pray for the Trump family tonight, hearing the news of Ivana passing. And so my heart goes out to them and to her children. And I'm just praying that God's wraparound presence would surround them and comfort them.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is from July 14th. It's a little bit older, but, you know, still interesting. This is around the time when Ivana died. Ivana Trump was Donald Trump's second wife, I believe. First wife, I think, was Marla Maples. Anyway, she's the mother of Ivanka Trump, Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr. Those are Ivana's kids. Barron Trump is Melania's kid, I believe. And I think that's all four of them. I don't think that Trump has any other kids, does he? Oh, Tiffany. Tiffany. Forgot about Tiffany, yeah. Marla Maples is Tiffany Trump's mom. And then we've got Ivanka, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric Trump. That's Ivana's children. Or those are Ivana's children. And then Barron Trump, I believe, is Melania Trump. Yeah. So 5 of them total. But Tiffany doesn't count because nobody cares about her, talks to her, talks about her. She's not involved in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, yeah. I mean, I like her just fine. I just get the impression Donald doesn't. So take that for what you will. Here's the interesting part about this whole thing, though. Now we can look back with hindsight at this and see how Donald Trump treated Ivana. As it turns out, Ivana Trump was buried at one of Donald Trump's golf courses so he could get a tax break. Isn't that nice? I don't insult people. I try desperately not to do so, but this is a real scumbag move, isn't it? To bury somebody on a golf course like that. That's depraved. That is deeply depraved. For a tax break. Just wrong.
Amen to that. Also, we want to remember the passing of Benny Johnson, friend to Flashpoint. He was an avid fan. And, of course, Bill, our hearts go out to the passing of Benny Johnson and the Johnson family. All of
No idea who that is, but I have to imagine if she was a friend of Flashpoint, then she was probably a complete nutcase.
those at Bethel, we are praying for the family. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that's Flashpoint for tonight. If you're not where you can stay, we're going to go with an extended edition right after the top of the hour break with Mike Lindell, Wildman Mike as I call him. We're going to get an update from him, and we're going to talk about election integrity. You don't want to go anywhere because Flashpoint is right here. We may not be who you thought we were, but we're who you need us to be. You're going to get...
Okay, I feel like that was more cryptic than necessary, kind of weird and confusing, but all right.
The truth every week right here on Flashpoint. And with great guests like this, why would you go anywhere else? We'll see you next time. Stay tuned. More to come.
So that's Flashpoint. This show is absolutely insane, and I'm here for it. Besides being wildly entertaining because of how insane it is, I consider it valuable to be aware of where the far right is moving, rhetorically. If you like the Flashpoint videos, or if you want me to cover something else, let me know in the comments.